Welcome back to the Vanflip, everyone. This is your host, Lurk, a.k.a. Dave. I'm sitting here with Jamie King. He is most known for the Basement Recording Studio in Winston-Salem, Florida. I'm sorry, not Florida, North Carolina. I'm in Florida. However, he also was in the band Swift, and we'll get into that as well. So how are you doing today, Jamie?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah, it's a nice warm day today, so I'm stuck inside.
I actually have the heat. I actually have the heater on a little bit. It's a little.
Oh wow, yeah. It was actually snowing yesterday, literally, and then now we have a warm front, and it's like 75 degrees. So interesting time here in North Carolina.
It's a little underneath 70 degrees right now for us, so it's a little freezing down here in Florida.
Yeah, that's freezing, all right.
Yeah, so I have to have the heater on a little bit, but. Yeah, so this podcast all came around because, you know, we started doing the Lambgoat podcast, and I, for some reason, was looking for your band Swift on the streaming services like Spotify and such like that. I had all your albums when I was a kid because I was a big fan, and I would come see you guys in North Carolina even though I lived here. But yeah, I reached out to your band's Facebook. I wrote a message like, hey, where can I get the CDs? Because I can't find them. I was going to buy them again because CDs to me sound better in my car than streaming the music. So
yeah.
Yeah, and you just hit me back, or the Facebook, Swift Facebook hit me back. And then when you sent some CDs in the mail to me for free of charge, which I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. And yeah, when your return address said your name on it, I was like, holy shit. So I decided to hit you up about the podcast, and I'm glad you were into it.
Well, like I said, I'm definitely honored to be here or whatever, to be a part of the podcast. But yeah, it's cool. I always try to hook up everybody with the Swift stuff. A lot of people don't want CDs these days, and we have a few left. And any of the fans, if they want the product, and I know a lot of people who are asking for CDs these days, they used to have them and have lost them or have damaged them or something like that. So, I try to hook people up,
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I greatly appreciate it. That was a big surprise, and I greatly appreciate being able to tell you thank you face-to-face, kind of. So that's great.
I appreciate you still being interested to listen to Swift. That's
a lot of my friends are too. But we'll get into Swift later on. So I just wanted to kind of knock that out right away because it'd be weird to thank you later on. But so back to you and what you do regularly for your quote unquote day job. You are an engineer, producer, recorder, mixer, master guy at the Basement Studios, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And what is the Basement Studios for anyone who doesn't know?
Well, the basement is basically just in reference to my my project studio here in my basement. It's basically just the basement of my house. I don't know if you guys have basements in Florida that often.
We don't.
Yeah, I didn't think that would be a good idea. But here in North Carolina, we do. I started out in my parents' basement, and then when I bought my house, I just set the studio up in my basement, and it's just I've been carrying the theme forward. It's just a project space, and it keeps the overhead low. It keeps the everything affordable, so that a lot of the clients I have are up and coming artists or just hobbyists and things of that nature. So to keep the price down is essential. And luckily nowadays you don't need a lot of stuff to do rock and metal production. Properly, so you don't need the whole large format studio like at one time you used to need to do that style of production, but yeah, a lot of people would have you believe that you would need it, but of course many of us know that you don't. So and it's convenient. I can just walk downstairs and be at work. It's got its upsides and downsides. Obviously, I'm never away from work, so could be a negative for my stress anxiety disorder, but we'll get into that a little later probably. But yeah, that's basically what the basement's all about. Mainly, more of my work these days is going toward mixing and mastering, because more and more people are able to record themselves, and there's so many people who have gotten into the game of recording and audio production. Almost everyone, all bands or artists can find someone local to them to to record the record, so they don't have to travel here. So more of my work is becoming mixing and mastering. So there's less emphasis on the basement recording and more emphasis on Jamie King audio productions. Tommy BT Bam is my manager, and he's going to help me put together a new website and everything, and it'll be JamieKingAudioProduction.com.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that'll be a little more, more people know that, my name through Between the Buried and Me and some of the other bigger bands I've recorded, and then know the basement recording studios. I don't really have a magnificent facility or anything like that. So it's got some gear, and it's it's at home, it's comfy. So,
well, I'm sure a lot more people know about it than you probably think. I'm sure. So in my research, I saw that you were getting credits as far back as 1986. Is that?
I think that's incorrect. There's a few things. I think the first recordings that I had done are probably 1996. But yeah, I think there's a Jamie King choreographer or something like that.
Okay.
It's a female choreographer that worked with Madonna and all kinds of crazy, huge artists. So it's funny that it has me listed as recording Madonna and stuff. So, I've been just kind of rolling with it. I'll take that. It's good,
it's a good little,
good rumor. Yeah.
Yeah. That actually probably catches one of the questions I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you how you got director/stage director credits with Madonna for the Madonna tour, but now that answers that. So.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
So how did it all start out? Like you said, like mid '90s, early '90s, or whatever. So how did it start out? You owning a studio or recording in general, really?
Yeah, I was, in the early 90s, I was in high school. I graduated in 95, and, throughout my high school years, my band had recorded at various recording studios, and at that time, all the studios that were local were really expensive, and, usually, and because of that, they were owned by older guys who were into more country or, beach music, things of that nature. So they didn't really understand the style and the sounds that we were going for. So, every time I would record somewhere with my band, I would just be disappointed with the way things are sounding. They didn't sound the way I wanted them to, or basically we just wanted to sound like our favorite bands, which at the time were like Pantera and Metallica, stuff like that. Big punchy kick drums, crunchy guitars, things of that nature, and all the studios, they wanted to give us this big pillowy kick drum, of country music or, beach music or whatever, and that just didn't fly with me. And I know, and I've told this story many times, but I've recorded, the last place I recorded with my band, with one of my bands, was a place called White Room Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're a fantastic facility. It's a multi-million-dollar facility, and huge name artists had recorded there and things like that. But we went in, to record a record, and ended up with $13,000 into the record, and it just and the record that we ended up putting out was another record that we recorded in a guy's basement, here in in North Carolina. So it was like northern North Carolina. So it was to me, it was an eye-opening situation. It was like, it's not the gear, because the White Room Studio place had the gear. It's just the engineer, and I knew what I wanted things to sound like. And, that was, we couldn't afford to pay any more than $90 an hour, so I was like, like my best bet is just to learn how to do this stuff myself. And, so that's what I did. I just bought some, instead of spending money recording elsewhere, I just saved up money and bought some ADATs, which were popular recording, was a popular recording equipment at the time. Is digital tape drive, for those who don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those digital tapes. So I bought those to start, and I started recording my band, and I just it's gone from there. I think the first BT Bam may have been recorded on the ADATs, and I know the first Swift records were recorded on ADAT. It was just the ADAT and a mixing board and a few outboard EQs and compressors and reverb units. All the cheapest stuff that was available. All Elisa's cheap Elisa's gear at the time, and it was listenable for the time. And I think that's what started my career. Is that other local bands noticed that I was getting this type of sounds that they wanted. for their records, which was the punchy kick drums and the big crunchy guitars and things, and so they started asking me to record them, and it's been rolling ever since. Kind of the same.
That's really cool. Did you just start out with a 4-track, or was there more to it than when you first started getting into recording? Not just when you were recording other bands, but like yourself and other bands that you had. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, the first, I had a Yamaha 4-track that I had bought in probably 92 or 93 or something like that. And that's what we used to use to record band practice. And I actually used to, we had a PA that we would use for live. So we had a 16 channel mixer. We'd mic the whole band up, at band practice. And basically we would record the band live and then over to vocals on these 4-tracks. So, and the guitar solos and stuff like that. And I actually was able to get pretty listenable sounds, I kind of felt like I had a knack for it or whatever, starting out on 4-tracks. So, and I actually had some people who offered me money to record them on 4-track even, it's like, the digital stuff, recording was expensive back in the day, all the gear, I remember the ADATs were $5,000 a piece, it's only 8 tracks and you had to have 3 to do, a regular, multi-track recording, I had $15,000 and, 3 ADATs,
wow.
First started, that's the first professional recording equipment, outside that you were looking at, the 4-tracks are like $500 and, the quality just wasn't professional with the 4-tracks. So, it was, like I said, it was kind of cost prohibitive, at that time. But then obviously, with Pro Tools, my first Pro Tools rig was an 888 TDM system, which was cream and white computer. It was like the old, I remember the system hard drive was like 400 megs or something like that. You couldn't even put a CD on the system hard drive, but all you could do was basic editing and things like that. And but yeah, as time went on, I remember they, DigiDesign or Avid released the Digio 1, and I started getting into the Pro Tools stuff more so. And I think that was the beginning of what made it easier for people to have the tools that they needed for professional recording.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, yeah.
What all got you into just being, into the engineering process and recording, other bands outside your own? I mean, you said you're self-taught for the most part, you said?
Yeah, actually, I did, like I said, I was in my band, I did live sound. I had enough PA equipment to do live sound, and I would go and do live sound, at a local venue. Quite often, and that's where I met the Between the Buried and Me guys. They were actually in a band called Prayer for Cleansing. Some of those guys, and some of the other guys were in other bands.
Glass Casket,
which used to be called Narian, and so there's other variations of those groups or whatever. But yeah, I used to do sound for all those guys, and like I said, they would hear the Swift record. At that time, Swift had I had just put together Swift and. We really promoted really heavily, and we were doing what was, kind of commercially popular at the time, or up and coming, and, with the melodic nu metal thing, and, we kind of tapped into that wave, and we got pretty big pretty fast, so a lot of people got to hear the record. I remember we put out at least 3,000 promo cassettes, so we just kind of flooded the area with promotional material. And back then, people would actually, if you gave them something for free, they would be, wow, let me check it out. It's not like today where it's valueless and people just throw it away. Then people, then people would actually check it out, and so a lot of the bands were checking it out, and it's and I worked at a music store as well towards 98, 99. I talked to musicians there, and they would hear my record, and they'd be like, hey, who recorded this? This sounds good. And I would tell them I did, and then we found out how cheap, and that I did it in my basement and all that stuff. Like, okay, cool, yeah, we'll do that too. And, that's kind of how it snowballed. And, most of my business to this day has been people hear it, they like the sound, they find out it's affordable, and then, that's kind of how it's been rolling, ever since.
Well, for anyone listening, it's affordable. If you're watching, it's very affordable. If you want to make a trip to Winston-Salem, I'm sure Jamie will hook you up.
Absolutely.
For the benefit of our average listener, could you explain the difference between an engineer and a producer, or engineering and producing?
Yeah, there's obviously different styles of music. There's almost a different definition. But traditionally, a producer is somebody who gets into the material and who actually helps, helps the band, not only capture the best tones and takes and stuff in the studio, but a lot of times a traditional producer will get into the material and, especially, if you have a record label or something that's wanting a marketable product for a specific demographic, the producer's there to kind of help shape the band's ideas and their material into that, product that's ultimately maximally marketable, In metal and progressive music, I think that, that kind of production's less needed or less, less done, or whatever, for lack of a better term. A lot of the bands, especially like Between the Buried and Me, I mean, they have their record completely written before they come in the studio. Actually, they've recorded it once before coming in. And my job as a producer is just to, it's largely just as an engineer to just, help capture the tones and takes that they're wanting to get for the record. But yeah, in terms of production, I might throw out an idea on a harmony or, a textured layer or something like that or whatever. But it's definitely nothing super in depth with those guys. And, but my main job is just, like I said, just to make sure that we're getting the best sounds or the sounds that they want, the takes that they want and need. And, sometimes it just takes a lot of patience and, the right motivation is, and I've talked about it here recently in other podcasts, but there's a lot of psychology involved. It's about creating the right, environment and, having the right attitude with the right individual to get the best tones or get the best takes out of them and things like that. So there's a psychology aspect involved in production that, if you're just an engineer, you're not going to be engaged in any of that kind of stuff. So my role definitely is, full engineer, full production type of thing with most of the bands that I work with in terms of recording here. Obviously, when I'm doing mixing and mastering, I don't have any production, say, almost other than, maybe an EQ or an effect or something like that here and there. The material's already captured and, the tones are already there, oftentimes. So there's not as much production I can lend to that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty. As an engineer, basically you're just doing the technical stuff. You're working all the, the computer, the outboard electrical equipment and setting up mics and things like that. And, there's definitely work to be done in that with all records or whatever. But, with the producer role, it's, it just depends on the artist, the style of music. Somebody like, Timbaland or, some in hip hop and things like that, their role as a producer is a lot of times they don't really do much of the engineering. They mainly are there to help the artist get, to help write the artist's song, really, to help them find the hot beats or the hot, whatever's trendy and marketable and things like that. And that's their job in that genre.
The producer name also gets borrowed by people who make their own music, whether like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me has a solo kind of electronic project that he would be considered a producer of his own music. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
It's seldom talked about the mastering process, but it's pretty important. What all goes into mastering? Since you said you were recently doing more mixing and mastering in general.
Yeah, mastering is just kind of the finalization of the product. A lot of people who can do mixing could also do mastering. I think it's become, back in the day, it was a necessity for people to get their record mastered because a lot of the recording and mixing facilities, they didn't have the gear, the specialized gear for mastering and to create a glass master and all that stuff for CD duplication early on, and then the tape machines to make the reel-to-reel masters that were going on before that. But nowadays, there's less of there's some specific outboard hardware that's nice to have, and there's a lot of software that's specific to mastering. And mastering just is mainly dealing with the final mixed 2-track files, usually. You're just basically standardizing. Your job is to standardize the level, standardize the EQ, and it makes sure the record translates consistently from system to system, that kind of thing. And just the final polish on the record. It's almost like you've built and you painted your car. Now you got to put the clear coat on it, and that's what mastering is, kind of thing. And like I said, there's some expensive gear that really does it. I use some industry standard stuff like, the Manley Massive Passive and the Very Mu compressor, and just there's $10,000, $15,000 worth of processing, but there's just something about those units, they're classic designs, built modern and clean from modern production, but they really they just add a sheen, a nice glossy sheen over the whole thing, and that's something that a lot of the plugins kind of approximate, but they just can't nail. So that's why a lot of people, it doesn't make sense for most individuals who are recording themselves at home to have $15,000 in mastering gear. So, a lot of people
hard to come by.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless they're just loaded, which there are people out there who are, but it's plus you're looking for the a mastering engineer, such as myself. I've been doing this for 20 years, so it's like there's an experience thing that's kind of helps and is necessary. I think oftentimes to maximize the overall EQ and the dynamics of the record and things like that. Having it loud and in your face and preserve the dynamics, but having it but not taken away from the sound or having it really distorted or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's a lot of these online services. They can do basic type of stuff, but it's like they don't have that, they can't give you any feedback. Like, hey, can you turn the snare up so that, because when I hit it with my mastering compressor, it's pushing that snare drum down. A website's not going to do that. A lot of people, when you master records yourselves, or the mix engineer masters a record, a lot of times, it's hard to hear the record. I guess, it's a good idea to at least take a break from it or send it to somebody else to get that, outside opinion on the overall EQ and their overall levels and stuff like that. It'll kind of, another ear or at least a break can help you identify problems and things of that nature. So that whoever mixed it, or when you did mix it yourself, that you didn't notice then. So
yeah, one of the most annoying things that I find whenever I do mixing and mastering of like my own music is I just get very tedious with it because want it to be perfect kind of thing, and then I start second guessing: do I have an ear? Do I have a proper ear for any of this stuff?
Oh yeah, yep.
So was it easy for you to learn? Because you said like you're kind of self-taught. Is it easy for you, or not for you, but for anyone to kind of just pick this up without going to school per se for like for recording or mastering or anything like that? Do you need an ear technically for that kind of thing, or is it something that you kind of learn along the way?
I think obviously, honestly, I believe, that I was kind of born for it. It was like I had, naturally musical. I can hear pitch. I can hear, I've got a sense of rhythm and things of that nature. There's some people who get into the, they try to do music or engineering. Who, if you can't hear pitch and you don't have a good sense of rhythm, it's going to be difficult for you. It's just like it's going to be difficult for me to run a 10K marathon. It's just I'm not built for it. It's going to be tough. So I think
us both.
Yeah, I just obviously I think there's definitely a learning curve involved with this. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of science involved. With the equipment. There's a lot of like I said, it's all the musical element of it, and there's, like I said, there's psychology, dealing with other people, there's a lot of facets to it, and, you kind of have to be good at all of it to be successful, I think, at the end of the day, and, but yeah, I think, I think personally, I feel like I just kind of fell into it naturally, like even more so, I always wanted to be a drummer in a band, but I kind of, when I started recording, I was like, man, I kind of enjoy this more than being a drummer. And then especially when I found out I could make a living more easily doing this stuff, than playing drums. And, it's, I'm kind of a homebody. I think, touring might be fun for 2 or 3 months, but then after that, I just want to be home, and, it's like, when you're in a band, I mean, you pretty much, to make a living, you have to be on the road quite a bit. So, I think anybody coming into this, I mean, I think, if you feel like you're musical, if you feel like you have a knack for understanding, computer software, hardware, stuff like that, just kind of do the checklist, everything that's involved. And I think this for any other style of or any other career in general, it's like, we've all been raised, you can do anything you put your mind through to. And, there's probably some truth to that to a degree, but it's like, if you just, it's going to be a lot easier on you, and you have a lot more chance of success if you do what comes naturally to you. And, you pursue something that you just have a natural proclivity toward,
right.
I feel like that's what I did. And it definitely didn't come easy to me when I started doing this. We didn't have the YouTube and all that stuff with all the insider secrets and stuff, and literally things like reamping and, all these, common knowledge, like drum quantizing and vocal tuning, all this stuff's all, it's commonly known that this stuff is done now. When I was starting out, it was like in the infancy of a lot of these, higher level production stuffs, and I didn't know it existed. I didn't know people were tuning vocals. I didn't know people were quantizing drums and guitars and things, and reamping guitars, and things of that nature. And it's like, those were guarded secrets when I was getting started. You couldn't, I remember I was going to go to Appalachian State, and I heard some of the instructor, I heard some of his material. I'm like, man, I'm better than you are right now. It's like, what am I going to learn from you? It's like,
right.
This is, so I got my associate's degree at a local community college, and instead of going to get my bachelor's degree in audio engineering at that school, I just decided I'm just going to buy the gear and figure this out, because the stuff, I'm not going to learn anything other than what's in books from these people, and I can learn that now. So
right.
It was difficult for me in that regard. I think if I had the information readily available, I could have learned it a lot quicker, because I felt like I had the natural knack for it. But at that time it was difficult and expensive to attain the proper gear. I was using budget gear that didn't yield the sounds that I needed and things like that. And, the information wasn't there. So it took me 10 years what people can learn in 1 or 2 these days,
Yeah.
Nowadays you can buy, a couple $1,000s in your computer and plugins and a few microphones, and you can get the better quality product than I was capable of getting with, $50,000 a year back in 1998 or whatever. So it's definitely a good time if you want to get into the thing in terms of like learning it. But having said that, it's also a bad time because there's a lot less money to be made. Because
a lot more people.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition, and there's less money being made in the music industry in general. Back when I was starting, if you're a good audio engineer, you're going to be making 6 figures, no problem. And now that's just it's possible but tough. It's tough to get to that point and keep it rolling. It's like I said, I mean, it's just I feel like I was lucky. I got in at the beginning of it, and I've kind of ridden the top of the wave, luckily, for all these this past 20 years, and I haven't had to promote and advertise. But a lot of the kids trying to get started, there's kids who I think are just as good, if not better, than I am, that can't get enough work to stay. They have to go get a job just because they haven't gotten lucky, and they haven't recorded the band that sold a lot of records and that's influential and what have you. So it's definitely not one of those things. It's I would say it's less difficult to learn and get good at the stuff than it is to actually make a living doing this now. I think that's the difficult element, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, it should be kind of difficult to make a living off of it too. But I mean, yeah, it definitely is a hustle, as they say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got it. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's why you have to be the complete package. You have to have it all. You have to know the psychology. You have to know the music. You have to know everything, even the business element. You have to I'm still trying to learn, and Tommy's helping me or whatever in terms of like just I'm a people pleaser. I let people walk all over me and things like that. I constantly do deals when I really can't afford to, and give up all my free time. I have no free time. I end up recording 70 hours a week usually. And it's, it's bad business. It's bad for me and my health, and things like that. And so I'm still learning today. It's like, but it's but hopefully I can, reel it in and keep this going and not end up being hospitalized or something like that,
Right.
But it's, for everybody, it's difficult. You got to be the complete package, man. You got to have it all together.
Yeah, talent can't float you the entire way, unfortunately, these days.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
You were saying it took you quite a while to learn some, trade secrets or just kind of common knowledge because you didn't really technically have like a book telling you what to do. But how do you still like learn things on like YouTube or anything like that? Do you seek out information because it's so readily available, or do you just have people that you kind of refer to as in the industry that you can maybe bounce ideas off of or trade secrets with?
Yeah, absolutely. All of that. I still I'll watch, I'll watch other, engineers that I respect. I'll watch their, tutorials and things like I've, the Unstoppable Recording Machine, the URM.com, they had me do a mix class with the Contortionist, and it's cool. It's like it's awesome that that I got to share my information, but it's actually extra cool that I've got a pass where I can get in and watch all my other friends,
right.
Joey Sturgis and all these other people, and see how they're getting their sounds and things, and so I try to, a lot of my early learning was trial and error. I just figured it out the hard way. Especially in terms of EQ and gear and things like that. Like I said, I bought some books and read some books and things, and they went over broad things, but at the time, metal wasn't taught in those books. I wanted to learn how to get the metal guitar and drum tones and things of that nature and the more extreme styles of music, and none of that was, being taught in the books or schools and stuff. So a lot of learning that was trial and error, but, nowadays you can learn any like those styles and any others. Almost there's more information about those styles online than there is any other styles. At this point.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, I try to learn anywhere and everywhere I can. I still feel like I'm still figuring some things out. With every success, it's almost like okay, I know what I'm doing now. But now. It's like now I can focus on something that I've been kind of not even noticing that I needed work on, because I finally achieved what I wanted to achieve with this sound or whatever, with like the snare drum or now let me go back to the toms, and it never ends, It's like, there are some people I think who can learn this stuff and they master it in like a couple years, and it's maddening to me because it's like I've been working for 20 years and I still don't feel like I'm where I want to be with stuff, and But it's funny because those people who are mastering it, if it comes easy to them, they get bored and they just don't want to do it. They want to do something else.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's not fun to me. It's like, dude, I've been trying to do what you can do. But it's like guitar players, like you're like practicing all your sweeps and you go online and there's some 13-year-old girl who can shred your face off.
Right.
And it's just it's like, what? And it's like, I've been trying all my life to do that. And it's, some people who are just born better, at certain things. But that person,
as long as you realize that and not get hard on yourself, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
There are naturally talented people out there, so.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you feel like you're doing good, I mean, obviously I'm making a living doing what I'm doing, so obviously I'm doing something right, and there's it's not just about how good things sound and things like that. There's, like I said, there's other elements to it. There's price. There's, hey, is this guy cool? Can we work with him? What's his ideas? How they're going to work with our music and things of that nature. So there's all those elements too, and so it's not just one element, but yeah, it's Well,
that's cool. Some audiophiles insist on recording on a 2-inch tape as opposed to digital. What are your thoughts on that?
I love the sound of tape outside of the tape hiss. I hate tape hiss. I think that's ridiculous. Like, to me, it's ridiculous to record on tape when you can get pretty much the exact same sound with tape emulators. Actually, I use the Empirical Labs Fatso, and it kind of emulates what happens to tape EQ and compression and saturation wise, like the harmonic distortions that are added to the signal, but it doesn't have the tape hiss. So I'm like, to me, it's like that's better. You get the positive sounds of tape. Without the negative things of tape. Obviously tape is expensive. You can only record 15 minutes of audio on tape. Things of that nature. So, in my opinion, I'm a fan of. I just say let tape die.
Time to move on, huh?
Yeah, people would be like, "You're crazy," but I mean, it's just, there's a certain nostalgia to it. Sometimes like I have a plug-in that emulates tape, and you can add the tape hiss to it. And I actually do have a 1-inch tape machine that if somebody wants that analog, legit like tape hiss with a little bit of whoa and flutter and things like that, I can do that for them. And I have I've worked out of studios that do have tape, and I've had a few clients say, "Hey, let's track the drums and bass to tape," and I'm like, "Cool, we'll do it." If that's what you want to do, because at the end of the day, it's whoever's paying is the boss, in my opinion. So if they want that sound, that's fine. But I've had scenarios where I've recorded tape, and I'm like, man, I wish we didn't record tape because that tape hiss is bothering me in this really quiet section. It's just like taking over the mix, and it's like, there's noise reduction plugins and things like that out there, but it's like, man, if we just recorded digital, this wouldn't be a problem. It's just
a lot easier.
Yeah, if you use tape, I say record digital also, or record digital first and then put it to tape, because it's going to sound the same, and you're going to have that the clean digital version to fall back on.
It's insane the plugins and the programs and the algorithms and all that stuff, how that works out nowadays. It's come very far.
Oh yeah, I mean they've gotten a lot of stuff really close, and some stuff is really close, and if not even better, they've taken all the positive attributes of tape, for instance, and like I said, they've improved on them. Now you can get those sounds with no none of the tape hiss and none of the whoa and flutter, that you don't want, that you never wanted. I mean, like I said, if the people, they're like, well, the Beatles record on this and that and blah blah blah, and I'm like, if the Beatles would have had options like, hey, do you want to record this tape that's noisy and pitch weirdly tape or whatever, or do you record digital? Which one do you want to do? They would have chosen digital. I guarantee you. And that's not why those songs are so good. People are like, oh, it's the sound. I mean, kind of, maybe, probably not. It's like it's the song. What I'm saying? They could have. You can get stuff to sound almost exactly the same on tape, on digital. Then it's with tape. It's like a good engineer could do it, and it would be not even distinguishable. So,
right.
I don't.
Sidebar you brought up the Beatles, and I constantly have this kind of discussion with people about the Beatles. Do you think that the Beatles were huge because there was only 3 television stations and 1 radio station possibly, or do you think they're that good? Because I just feel like I grew up in the age of the internet. That's how I found out about your band. That's how I found out about a lot of other bands. So as a kid, I never really got into the Beatles because to me, it was just simpler music in general, but it also was like the birth of pop music and all this, that, and the other. So I give it its credit when it's due, but I think that if people had a choice, they might not have chosen the Beatles if they had a plethora of options, though. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, there's an element to it there at the right place, the right time. At that time, recording was insanely expensive, and basically the labels, like the best of the best, they only did deals with the best of the best. There were a lot of artists or whatever that just couldn't get a record deal and could never record anything, and they're lost to history. And there may have been some songwriters and things that are better, that were better than the Beatles. Who knows? But I think because the Beatles were, to me, I love the Beatles. I think the melodies and stuff that they've written, they're timeless. It's not the musical execution's not incredible to me. It was okay, but it was the melodies. I'm like, how do you come up with this a melody? And all their stuff was so variant. Like from the beginning to the end. It was just like they constantly changed and had so many hits, and it was just like, to me, that's what's amazing. How do you come up with something fresh and new, but also timeless, and it almost everybody likes, like, how do you do that? It's like, there's so many bands out there, these days, it's like there's so much clutter that are good musicians, so way better than the Beatles ever thought about being,
right,
in terms of musicians, but they can't write anything that's catchy, that sticks, and that stands out. But the Beatles did it constantly throughout the whole existence of the bands. Like, that's what blows my mind, it's like, and, like I said, they had a lot of resources, they had all the resources that existed at the time, like in terms of producers, the best gear, the best environment, so all that was behind them, the infinite amounts of money and stuff like that. So, maybe that's part of why they were able to do that, I think a lot of artists would be able to write better music if they didn't have to work and they had the best of everything and infinite amounts of money behind them. So it's kind of like, it's kind of unfair to compare. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, there's an element to there. Maybe there could have been somebody better, but
right place, right time is a good way to describe it, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely it played a role. They were just
that doesn't necessarily degrade them in any way. I don't want to degrade them in any way, I should say, but they get credit where credit's due. They get respect when respect is due. So
yep.
I just think that also, if there were more options, they might not have been so giant. But okay, back on track here. How long were you doing recordings for other people before you decided to open your own basement studio?
It just kind of became honestly, I was working in a music store up until 2001. Is when he decided to close the store. The owner decided to close the store. So, and at that time, I was playing with the band Swift, and we were negotiating a contract with MCA in 2001, and so, basically, but I needed something to pay some bills, and just, I was living in an apartment with my girlfriend at the time, and I needed something to pay the bills, but I didn't want to get another job because I thought, we were negotiating this contract, it was a $500,000 deal. We're going to be hitting the road. We're going to get money to pay our rent and all this stuff from the label. And I was like, well, I just need to, do something in the meantime until that happens. And we were looking at, later in 2001, the deal was supposed to be done later in 2001. So, I was like, luckily I had already gotten booked a little bit booked up with recording bands, here, and I used to record bands on the weekends that Swift wasn't playing, and for a few hours in the evenings and stuff like that. So I had a lot of people wanting to get in the studio that I couldn't get in when I was working at the music store, and I was like, well, let me just take a run at this, and that's like I said, I recorded the first BT Bam record during this time period, and it just kind of 9/11 happened, and that messed up our record deal offer. The economy dropped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the economy dropped out, and basically, MCA was like, look, we can't put $500,000 into an unproven band right now, because we don't know what the economy's going to do, and blah, blah, blah. And our manager at the time was anxious for his $20,000-$30,000 cut, and he was like, he kind of pissed off MCA and was like, we're going to take Swift back to Warner Brothers, and he went back to Warner Brothers, who also wanted to sign us at one time, and they were like, dude, we're in the same situation, we can't invest now. And then so basically, like, the rug was pulled out from under Swift in terms of the major label record deal. And so all of a sudden it was like, well, now I need a job, I guess I'll be recording. So actually I moved out of the apartment. My girlfriend was not happy about this. I moved back in with my parents. And I was like, I'm going to make a push at the studio thing, because I was quite booked up by that time. I was booked up pretty much full time, and I was like, I think I can make this work, but I need to learn to do the full production stuff. I need to get the computer, learn to do the full production, and just really try to do this. And I thought, if Swift does end up doing something, this is going to be beneficial for Swift also. Right. If we just buy our own computer and if I just learn to do real full production myself. And so obviously with the Swift thing, we just kind of decided, hey, we're just going to do this for fun. And up until about 2005 when, we kind of we went on hiatus. A couple of the, 3 of the guys moved up to New York with girlfriends and things like that. So we just couldn't be as active as we had been up until then. But yeah, like I said, luckily somehow I've stayed booked ever since 2001. I really didn't plan on it. I mean, I kind of planned on it. I hoped for it, but I didn't, I didn't know it was going to be what it is now. My
wished
career.
For it would be a better term.
Yeah. I mean, I had fantasies that having a big studio and all this stuff, and so that's never happened. But luckily, because a lot of the big studios, I mean, you take out a $500,000 loan, and a lot of the big studios around here have closed down and gone bankrupt, and it's so I'm glad I never did go that route. I would have never been into any profit margin. I wouldn't be able to provide for my family now. If I'd gone that route. So,
How long were you? Because you said you moved home. When you moved home, obviously, did you start the basement then? And you said you earlier it was in your parents' house. So was it right away kind of a thing that you just started kind of recording bands in the house?
Well, I had always been recording in my parents' basement. Funny thing, ever since I've been playing in bands, or I started playing drums when I was like 12, 13 years old. So we just started playing there, and we always had band practice there. Somehow my parents were crazily fine with it. And so it's like I would record, we'd have band practice at my parents' house. I recorded my bands at my parents' house in their basement, and then I recorded other bands at my parents' house. Like my drums and all my gear were there, even when I was living in, with girlfriends in apartments or whatever in my early 20s and stuff. And I still just ran the business out of my parents' basement, And it was literally just a basement. I mean, we're talking concrete walls and tools hanging on the on the wall. And things like that, it was, my dad originally built it to work on his cars, and it was funny,
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they didn't use it, so I was just like, well, I'm using it, and somehow they were fine with the noise. I guess they had just gotten used to it over the years, and but yeah, like I said, so I stayed recording there. It's like ultimately, like I was like, I'm going to have to, it wasn't until 2006 that I bought my own house and finally moved out of my parents' basement, and started working out of my this house that I live in now. So, but I just moved from one basement to the other. This basement has walls and sound treatment and stuff like that in the main tracking room anyway. So it's it's not as just a basement. It's not as much of just a basement as the other place is, but yeah, it worked out. It's funny how that basement actually sounded really good. The house is over 100 years old and had odd angle walls and exposed rafters and insulation, so that it acted as some sound absorption and diffusion and stuff like that. It had all the duct work exposed and all that stuff, and so that room strangely sounded really good. Concrete floors, but a local studio, multi-million-dollar studio here in Kernersville, North Carolina, has all concrete walls and floors, and that was by design. So it's funny. I had to spend a lot of money to get this room to sound like that room did just by default. It's crazy.
Right. Well, it's pretty cool that you had parents, that were very supportive of you doing that. Because I also had a parents that were okay with our band practicing in their house for the most part, and we didn't have basements, so it was legitimately in the house. But yeah, I feel like when you come from a supportive environment, that is all the world better. But
it's critical. Yeah, I would have never been able to do what I did, what I've been able to do, would have never been able to learn this stuff without that option. And my dad played some guitar, and I think they just they were hippie parents, back when they were kids, so they liked rock and roll and stuff. And my dad would come down and watch us play and watch me record other bands and stuff like that. So he's, but yeah, it's definitely instrumental in me developing my ability, on drums at first, and then in recording and whatever other musics and stuff. So I definitely owe it to them for that,
One of the only basement shows I ever actually played in my entire life with the band I was in Winston Salem, of all places, with a band you recorded with. You recorded, not with, but you recorded.
Oh, wow.
My Hero Is Me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We played a show with them, and you may even know the person's house it was, Lintz.
It sounds familiar. If I saw
he was
him.
one of the, I think right now he does a lot of he runs a couple bars up in that area, but he was their manager or something like that. So yeah, we played my one and only basement show was in North Carolina.
That's awesome, man. That's a small world. Yeah, I'm sure you were very close to me at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So I feel like when you're buying equipment, obviously for your studio and stuff like that, it seems like one of those things that will just never stop because there's always the newest and greatest and best thing that's coming out. Do you think you'll ever be satisfied with your buying equipment?
Probably not, no. Yeah, I keep, like I've said it so many times, one of the things I wish I would have done is, a lot of people, there's some people who make fun of me because I'm always talking about, industry standards stuff or whatever, but there, I've determined there are some, pieces of gear that's industry standard for certain sounds and things, and, I wish I would have known what those things are and would have saved up and just bought the industry standard stuff. Even some of it's inexpensive, some of it is expensive. So, but I tried to get the sounds that I was going for with all this budget gear, and I could not get them. And I developed a lot of bad EQ and compression habits and things, trying to get the bad stuff to sound like the good stuff. And, this is stuff like, just basic preamps. Like I love API preamps on the drums. Like you buy, an API preamp and put it on a kick or snare. It just gives you that snap and that depth and that in-your-faceness that just a regular solid state, budget preamp just will not give you. And it's not anything you do EQ-wise or compression. It's just how that preamp sounds. They're not cheap, But, I went through so many different, probably $10,000 worth of budget preamps and interfaces before I finally just bought Pro Tools HD and got some Neve Clone and API preamps. And, same thing with the mastering stuff. I just bought the Manley. I mean, it's $5,000, but it's like, it's a standard for a reason. It's like, It's tried and true. Bob Ludwig uses the Manley stuff. He's one of the biggest names in mastering. It's like, if there was something better, he would be using it. That's my belief anyway. It's a logical deduction from all this stuff. But, yeah, it's like, down to drum mics. I would try to use these cheap drum mics, and it's like, it's like I should have just bought the standard stuff, the stuff that everybody else is using. Like, I wanted to get sounds like other people, so let me get the gear that they're using. And that's literally half the battle. It's then you can develop good, you can learn EQ and compression and develop good EQ and compression techniques and stuff. And, so that would have saved me a lot of time and money. And like I said, now luckily all that information is pretty readily available to people. All they have to do is watch my class and others' classes and, see what they're doing, what they're using. And a lot of it honestly has been replaced by, plugins and stuff in the computer. You don't have to have as much gear. But, like I said, they people keep coming out with new stuff. Like I said, the Kemper came out. It's like, at one time it's like, I had a wall of, premium guitar heads and, modified by Voodoo amps in New York, it had the best stuff. And now, it's like now all you have to have is a Kemper, and you can profile all those and you have pretty much those exact tones for a fraction of the price. And it's like, and it's so much more convenient and all this stuff. But you got to spend the money again. It's like, man, I've already spent $15,000 on guitar amps. It's, that the person getting in right now is like, they're getting in a good time. You can you can have access to all these great sounds and great equipment for, as cheap as it's ever been, And one day, like I said, maybe the real Manley or the real APIs and all that stuff will be replaced, if they get the software 100% right. They've gotten closer with a lot of other things, like I said, the Kemper is pretty much spot on with the real amps, or close enough, and I think they'll get there with the plugins as well, eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane how all that stuff, we've already said it, how it's progressed, but it definitely is. It's crazy how far it's come, and I don't even know where it will go. That's some out of this world stuff.
Oh yeah, eventually there'll be an auto mix that'll put me out of business and everybody else.
Well, everything's going to be robotic, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you put your music in a computer, and it's like you tell what band you want it to sound like, and it'll just do all the stuff. And
do you ever think because you're somewhat limited for space in your basement or in general with you constantly buying equipment and everything? Do you ever think you'll outgrow your basement studio?
Oh, well, I mean, not really. Like I said, I'm recording less and less, so if anything, it's like I could probably sell a lot of the stuff I have now and just I'd be fine. In terms of like guitar cabinets, bass cabinets, amps, all that stuff. It's like it rarely gets used. Like I said, I've profiled all my amps, so all my amps are in the Kemper now. So there's really no real reason. The only reason I have my amps, honestly, is just I have some older guys, they're purists, and they want to use a real amp on the record, and I can do that because I've got them. But as far as I'm concerned, I know it sounds exactly the same if I use the Kemper, and it's more convenient because it's like right here, and it's you don't have to burn tubes and things. So, but yeah, if anything, I'm fine with downsizing. Like I said, it's when I do if I do have a project, like Between the Buried and Me, they like to record the last couple records we've recorded the drums at the Fidelatorium just to get the big room sound. The real, instead of, I usually emulate, those convolution reverbs, you can emulate, world famous studios and things like that. And it's to me, it's good enough. It's just as good as any real room, really. But there's it's just if you got the money and the resources, why not do the real thing? It's fun, So we've been tracking at the Fidelitorium for the past couple records, and it's a big room, and they've got timpanis, and if they need to track any strings and we need the big room, we can go over there. So there's times, my thing, there's people who have that stuff. So if anytime I need something else, I'll either go to another studio or I'll rent it. Like I said, if there's some gear that I don't have the band needs, I'll either buy it and then sell it, or buy it and return it. Whatever I need to do to have access to the gear. So, but the stuff I use on the reg, I'm pretty happy with right now. There's a few pieces of gear that I kind of would like to have, for mastering, mixing, stuff like that. But, nothing, I think I've done enough experimentation for, and, as far as the sounds that I need to get and I like to get or whatever, that I've got the right stuff for what I'm doing at the moment.
Have you ever thought about maybe packing up and moving your studio and your whole situation to a bigger market or an area like, New York, LA, or anywhere like that?
No way.
No?
I love, my family's here. I love North Carolina, and it's been good to me. It's like I would be, small fish in a big pond in that situation. Like here, I feel like I'm kind of one of the bigger fish, Yep. So it's like, I think I'm in a good spot for that. And it's, honestly, like I said, the big city's certainly not for me in terms of like, I've got to be able to go to the mountains. And, here in North Carolina, you drive for 3 or 4 hours to get to the beach. You drive for a couple hours in your mountain. So it's like, you got that variety, and it's, but it's, like I said, I was born here. I've been living here. My family's comfortable here and stuff like that. So, and like I said, I have traveled here and there for recording. So if somebody needs me to come to wherever, I can fly there and do the work. It's like I said, there's studios all over the place. I've been lucky enough. I've got a good number of assistants. I've got Evan Sammons from Last Chance to Reason. Michael Sarr from the Contortionist, that was his old band. He's up in Maine, so I've got a guy who helps me up there. Just guys everywhere. I've got a guy who helps me on the West Coast, down in, down where you're close to you, and there's a lot of people who know my process and how I do things, and they're kind of like franchises of the basement, in a way. So it's like,
I was going to ask if you ever thought about having multiple studios that where people can. Not you run specifically, but you can just pop in if you need be. If like the band's closer in that area, it's still like your studio someone else is running, but you just pop over,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, since I've done my classes like on creativelive.com and URM or whatever, it's like it's cool because there's some people who I've met who've learned, who kind of watched those things and learned my process quite a bit. And like I said, I've got a guy in Texas. Like if there's a band in Texas that's looking to record, if they they'll approach Tommy, my manager, and he'll be like, hey, we can, if you go up to Jamie, that's fine, but it's going to cost, I don't provide sleeping quarters, so you're going to have to get a hotel room, you're going to drive, blah, blah. Or you can stay in your hometown and record with this guy who's been trained by Jamie. And, so it's really a good way for me to do business. I can help more clients, because when I'm doing mixing and mastering, since I'm not doing a whole bunch of the traditional production anyway, in terms of getting into people's songs, if they want me to get into their songs, they're going to have to like send stuff via email or come here, for that type of production. But it's rare that I get people who are actually looking for that in-depth song production, and mostly they just want to have their stuff sound a certain way. So when I have these satellite studios, like, they're usually using the same preamps that I'm using, same mics and stuff. I'll tell them, hey, this is what I want on this and that. And I'll give them, my assistants a list of how I like to have things tracked out. And, just as long as they make sure they get everything in time and in tune and get good magical takes or whatever, the product's going to turn out essentially the same, so.
Yeah. So that kind of leads to a good segue point here for the next couple of questions. When you're working with new clients, or clients, I should say, new or old, your approach has changed over the years. Like you said, you don't really necessarily do a lot of the producing part of it anymore. But how involved are you in the process, like as far as creating their album?
it just depends on the client and what they want and need and stuff. And like I said, it has become less and less with most of my clients. But I've had here recently, I've had a few people who are like, they've had me play the drums on their record. Even it's like, hey, we need drums. They'll have their idea kind of sketched out in Superior Drummer or something like that, but I'll go in and play drums. So that's I can kind of get in and do that aspect of things, or play bass on the record, things of that nature. I've had a few bands. I have a band right now who's I guess I probably shouldn't say because it hasn't been announced, but they're working with a pretty big famous drummer in terms of structuring their material, and he wants to work with me on that also, like structuring and actually writing more so. So that and he will be coming here from Nashville. There's a few clients who do ask me to do that type of stuff, and I'm definitely down to do it. It's a lot of fun for me to to get creative and things of that nature. But at the same time, like I said, it's most of the bands I work with, they're very progressive music. Most of the musicians, they are very specific about their material. They're like, hey, these are the parts. This is the way we want it to sound. Down to like the kind of, this is the tempo for the delay, stuff like that, so it's kind of hard to get super creative with some of these bands that just be like, you're taking away from our original, vision and blah, blah, blah. So I try to just, follow the instruction, to the, as much as possible. If I have an idea, I always will throw it on the table. I'll be like, hey man, what do you think about me doing this? And if they're, hey, cool, let's try it. If we try it and they don't like it, obviously, my idea doesn't get used. But yeah, like, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's, certain bands, like, I remember with Between the Buried and Me, I used to help Tommy out with harmonies because he started off as primarily a screamer. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a melodic vocalist at first, and he's become a pretty badass melodic vocalist.
Yeah, he's a great singer. He has great vocals.
Yeah, I remember him, like, when they were like, dude, you're going to have to sing. The original vocalist is Will Goodyear, their original drummer. The original clean vocalist, and when he was out of the band, it was basically fell to Tommy and Paul to do the melodic vocals, and Paul's a great singer too in reality, and but it's like, I remember Tommy would come in to flesh out his ideas, and I would help him write harmonies and things like that. But see, now Tommy, he's past decade or so, he can write his own harmonies, so there's less help with that with Between the Buried. I mean, now I'm probably the bad influence of the band, trying to like, hey, let's put banjo over this part and just just all the silly fun stuff. Like I'm I like trying all that stuff. It makes it fun, and they're into it too. So, and a lot of that stuff's their fault as well. But
their fault.
Yeah, but we have fun with BT Band. They do a lot of layering, and they run the backing tracks or whatever. So we get to have fun with that kind of stuff. Blake and I have done full marching band sections, and I mean, last record we finally got some real horn players in, trombone and trumpet player and things like that, and it's that stuff makes it killer. It makes it a lot of fun, and just adds a little extra spice and vibe to the music to have the real stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's different than, because I'm sure Tommy previously has maybe recorded it with a keyboard, because I know he's a very talented keyboardist too. So yeah. He probably did some horns like that, or produced some horns and stuff like that. But yeah, having the actual instrument there and someone who can play it is definitely an upside to that.
Yeah, there's certain things. I used to play trumpet in high school, and
same.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to be a common. I've met a lot of people. I know Ryan from Mudvayne. I'm recording his new project, Soften the Glare, and he used to be a trumpet player. It's like, how
interesting.
Everybody's a trumpet player. It's crazy, but yeah, like I said,
I wish I had chose a different instrument, honestly, but I stuck with it. So
well, I got convinced to do that as well by we need a trumpet player for the Christmas concert, and so I was a trumpet player. I was like, dude, I want to play drums, but for me, it's like it was actually a good thing because I got to know note theory and stuff a little better than I would have otherwise, and it's so it's a good thing that I was pushed to play trumpet. And but yeah, I'm actually a really big fan now. And there's things you can do with horns and stuff that might not necessarily exist on with programs, or at least that I know that exist with programs and stuff. And so it was cool for this last record for them to have a real legit horn players, and we're looking to do that with the Soften the Glare record also. It's get some real sax, real horn, real fiddle, that kind of stuff. It's and it's usually me kind of pushing that kind of thing because I know, the life it can add is, in terms of production. Like they're like, oh, the keyboard sounds fine. I'm like, yeah, it sounds fine, but trust me, it's going to be hot fire when we throw these real horns on here, and especially if you get some real players, it's like there's a certain energy it brings to it. It just.
I think it's more full. I think the sound is more full too. I mean, because it, in my personal opinion, just kind of sounds flat if you have kind of like a keyboard kind of like sample or whatnot. But
yeah, it's just like drums. You get fake programmed drums. There's just something about it. It sounds good technically, but it's like there's a certain life that's missing. If it's a real drum performance, there's something about it. It might not technically be as good. I mean, like in terms of fidelity and consistency and whatever else, but there's a certain life and vitality to it that doesn't exist with the program stuff. I mean, no matter how long it's like no matter how long you program and stuff, and same thing with horns and all this other stuff. I mean, if you can do it real, that's that's a lot of my in terms of production. I try to produce. I try to get people to do real stuff whenever there's time and budget to do so, and it makes sense for the project. I try to push us. Hey, let's do all this stuff real.
Yeah.
None of this fakery, like slow down recording guitars for perfect subdivision, shred licks and stuff. It's like, to me, it's like, I don't get stoked unless I know it's real. If it doesn't sound a little bit imperfect, I'm suspect of it, when I'm as a listener. I think, especially in prog music, I mean, I think the fans, maybe they haven't put their finger on it, but I think they're largely the same. It's like, it seems like the bands who do it real, who have more organic records, get bigger. The biggest bands always have real records. They don't. Yeah. And all the bands who have become popular, who used to have programmed records, they're now doing it all real as well. So it's like, I understand it's more time and effort and sometimes more money or whatever goes into that.
Definitely, sometimes more money. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's worth it. And it's to me in the long run. In terms of metal and rock's, traditionally performance-based art, and it kind of should be that, in my opinion, So it's like I don't know. So, but that's just my 2 cents and opinion, So the different styles of music, kind of can benefit from a more mechanical vibe too. So it just depends on what you're going for, I guess.
I think hip-hop and electronic music are the only ones that could probably benefit the most from that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fine. Nobody cares. There's no performance people are listening for. They're not getting stoked on any technical performance element, So it's like, I think the coolest sounds you can come up with is where you want to be with that, It's something fresh and original, and, it's more fashion-oriented, I think, in terms of, sonics and, rap deliveries and whatever else,
Plus, if you have a laggy drummer, that adds to, the whole overall sound. I mean, Led Zeppelin was like that. They had a drummer who was, drunk or high half the time in the studio, so it comes out crazy.
And people love it. And if it was programmed, it would not have sounded that way. Absolutely.
Or even if he was just a regular dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. If he was sober, it would not have sounded that way. No, but I mean, there's reality and all that kind of stuff. It's just capturing that vibe and magic. I think that's definitely a role as a producer I try to play. I try to people go for originality. I try to people try to find the magic. Wait until the magic happens. If there's a take in there that's going to be. Obviously everything doesn't have to be hot, hot fire, magic, whatever, if it's like a background rhythm or whatever. But, we talk about lead vocals or lead guitar or like the drums are definitely heavy. And I mean, anything that's going to be heavy and clear in the mix, it needs to be, it needs to have a lilt to it, a nice magical, hot fire feel,
So what are some things that new bands should do before heading into the studio for the first time, or when should a band spend money on recording and studio time for the first time? And a lot of bands are recording themselves these days. So like, is it better to record yourself and then come, for the mixing and mastering, or does a band benefit from, booking recording time with an actual person as well?
I honestly believe, I believe go in and record with a professional first before you ever record yourself. Because you're going to learn, you're paying for studio time to record your material, but you're also paying for the ability to sit there and watch what to see what the professional did, see what gear he's using, blah, 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 or she, things of that nature. I think it's, to me, that'd be it's an opportune time. Maybe, first couple records even, wait, and it's like, and, I think aspects that you can record at home with budget gear. There's a lot of stuff, like a lot of people recording, most people need to go into a studio to record acoustic drums just because, the preamps and the interfacing that's needed to record acoustic drums, all the mics and all that stuff. I mean, you need, 12 minimum inputs up to 20 inputs. It's like to do a regular drum kit properly. And it doesn't make sense for the average individual to buy all that, to buy all the premium analog, preamps and, microphones and, premium interfacing, stuff like that. So I think always unless you're just rich, it just makes sense to go into a studio to track acoustic drums. So you're going to need to go do that anyway. Most people do it, even people who are professionals, and, they can record at home all except for that. So, plus you have to have a, acoustically treated environment to to do it proper. You could potentially have some negative, if you're trying to record in your living room, it might work out, but it might not,
Yeah.
But it's, so there's that or whatever. But, a lot of things you can track at home these days, and it work out fine. Like guitars, you can record the guitar directs. You can even probably record vocals. Certainly bass, certainly synthesizers, keyboards, or anything like that or whatever, especially all background stuff that you don't need a whole bunch of definition or clarity for, can certainly be tracked at home. And, I do a lot of bands that, they'll track the drums in the studio, track all the guitars at home, and then if their guitar tracks or vocal tracks need some life, I'll run their stuff through my analog gear to add that transformer, harmonic saturation, and mojo to the sound. If it doesn't sound like their stuff was recorded with high quality analog gear or whatever. So it's kind of a workaround strategy, but that way they can take time and do it at home, and a lot of people like to record as they write, and it's only cost effective to do that if you are at home or you have your own studio.
Right.
It can get really expensive in a studio situation if you're actually writing as you're recording. So, that's appropriate for those people. But yeah, I think, like I said, up and coming band, like a band who's first starting, go into a studio and just maybe do the whole first record in the studio. Then maybe the next one, just cut the drums and go home and try to do the guitars, and then come back and do the vocals, depending on what your gear is. And then, as you become more and more confident, as you get more gear and things of that nature, then maybe you can tackle everything. Maybe you can grab some stuff and try the drums yourself or whatever. But, like I said, to me, I can't see tracking drums with anything less than $10,000 and it being unless you're planning on sample replacing everything, which a lot of people do. But that would be the only option at that point, is just to, use samples that were recorded with premium gear and replace all your drums, and,
that only gets tedious.
Yeah, I mean, it's common, it's a very common thing. It makes it easier for, like recording acoustic drums is definitely a skill to develop. You got to learn how to tune, you got to learn mic placement, you got to learn dynamics treatments and EQing. It's probably the most difficult thing to do for modern rock and metal. I think, and it's becoming a lost art. There's a lot of, back in the day you had to learn that. Now you don't really have to learn it. You can record some cymbals and then sound replace everything, and it sounds pretty close to professional. But it's not as, like I said, you lose a lot of that magic or whatever. Like the more, sample blending you do or whatever, like I said, especially if you don't do it properly, you can really lose a lot of magic and energy and vitality to the recording.
Yeah. How crucial is it for bands to, because we talked about, getting the proper tones and everything like that for, an artist or a band's music. How crucial is it for a band to have a unique sound? Do bands try to find it while they're in the studio, or do they come with it already known? And how influential are you in, honing in or picking out their sound?
Like a lot of times, like I said, as I mentioned earlier, it's like whoever's paying is the boss, and I try to be, if they want a specific sound, I'll try to find that sound for them. But at the same time, I do try to, as a producer, I recommend like, hey, just, like I try to get people to give me an idea what kind of sound they like, but then I always, state that it's like, I like to try to, let you sound the way you sound. It's always give them a lecture about that you need to have your exclusive sound ultimately for success. And I truly believe that. Like I said, between the Buried Men and Contortionist, some of these, the bands that I've recorded that are successful, part of the reason I believe they're successful is because they have a really unique and identifiable sound. When you hear 30 seconds of a BT Bam song and it's like you can tell who it is by the way they do their riffs, by their tones, by their vocals. It's like the drum beats, things like that. And it's like, they have their own sound. So I try to, every band that comes in, I try to, teach them that lesson that I've learned, that what I've seen pay off for other artists, and is to find and have your own, tones, your own riffs. Even if you do stuff that's similar to other bands, you have to find your own, at least somewhat your own combination and the way you do things that make you stand out and cut through the clutter. And I think, I think that's important for, ultimate success. I think it sounding like another band, and most of the bands I have that are young that record with me, they usually want to sound like their favorite couple, 2 or 3 bands. And, and I understand that because I was there too. I was a kid, I love, Metallica, and I wanted to sound like that. And it's like, but, as you mature as a musician, it's like you start to see the value of, having your own, unique, identifiable sound. And, so I think, like I said, at first you can get a little bit of, you can get a little bit of attention if you sound like another band and are doing a good job of it. But ultimately, you're never going to go to the, you're never going to make it to the making a living status until you have an exclusive product that people like. I think that's
it's super important to have I think a unique sound as well for your longevity of your career. First and foremost, because if you sound just like everything else, because with the plethora of artists that are, like you said, able to record at home, and with the marketing and the internet and social media, it seems really saturated in metal and stuff like that now, because it's just more available to everybody. But yeah, it's very critical, I think, for a unique sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next question was, have you ever been asked not to work in your home studio? But obviously we've gone over that. So does it cost extra for someone to bring you outside of your home base because you're so, apt to working at home?
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's just, obviously there's travel expenses involved, and,
right.
I've got a young, kid or whatever, and I'd rather not spend a lot of time away from him. So if I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to have to get a little extra for that,
Worth it. It's got to be worth it.
Yeah. It's just, and depending on the artist, what I'm saying, if it's something I really believe in, or, I think it's going to be a big, boost from my career or something of that nature. If there's other, other things that play into it, then I might agree to do it. But yeah, just in general, it's like, I'm trying to just hang around here.
Yeah. And I actually was introduced to North Carolina. My family's from North Carolina, oddly enough, but when I was younger, 16, 17, 18, that's when I started traveling for shows, and Swift was one of those bands that obviously I was really into when I was a kid. So I remember going to North Carolina. I fell in love with North Carolina since then, but yeah. I went to like the Lovesick, not the Lovesick, but the Waging War CD release party and all that other stuff. So North Carolina is a great place not to want to leave.
That's awesome. Yeah. That was a different time for North Carolina too, especially music scene wise. The music scene's kind of dried up around here since then, but
that's crazy because it used to be so. Like, a lot of metal used to come from there. I remember North Carolina being like a North Carolina metal. You know what I mean? That was a staple.
I think there's some good bands around here. I think the problem is just a consistent. For the past decade, there hasn't been any good consistent venues that really support and making good decisions as far as like what bands to bring in and what bands to pass on and things like that. And it's like it used to be Ziggy's, which Ziggy's was, I think, a terrible venue, and
was that the one that was kind of like a...
It was like a barn.
With different levels?
Yeah, yeah. We had our best shows there. Had a cool vibe there, but yeah, the venue itself wasn't that not great or anything. But yeah, they finally they were forced to sell by Wake Forest University to make room for tailgating parking lot. But it took them some years to like finally open up a new venue, and then they opened up the new Ziggy's downtown Winston. It was a super nice venue, finally done right. But then it's just bad management. I think Jay, the original owner, got sick or something, and whoever else that was running it were, they started doing like Hispanic night and hip hop night, and none of the venues that ever do that ever succeed. They were, big packages would come through, and they were like, oh, we'll pass on it, and it's like, over time it just, there wasn't any consistent place to go see, live rock and metal. So it was like it just died. It just, and over to, luckily we have the Ziggy's. The building is reopened, as a club called the Ramcat, and it's owned by some new people, and I'm hoping they do proper things. But I'm hearing they're passing on big metal packages and stuff like that. So it's like, and even when the art, a lot of, and this happens all over the country, but it's like, I understand a lot of bands, a lot of metal, artists tour in packages, like 3 or 4 band packages and things like that. But it's like the local promoters need to put on the local bands with the big bands to help those smaller bands get popular. So that,
and to build your local scene too.
It builds the scene, yeah, exactly. Swift had a few opportunities, but it was just we had to fight for those few opportunities, to open for bigger bands and things like that. And it's just anybody with any business common sense to me would know that, hey, this is a positive thing if we help build up the local talent. That way, when we don't have a big package coming through, we can put them on and they're going to pack out the club, and this place becomes known for the place to go to experience quality live rock and metal and stuff like that. I think with any business, like I said, if McDonald's decided to not sell hamburgers anymore, it's like you go some days and there's no hamburgers. You're like, eventually people are going to stop going. And it's like
right, yeah.
It's just,
I only remember Ziggy's, and I think Brouhaha's was right next into that. Right in that same area. Was that, am I?
Yep, you got it. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, originally.
It's been a while since I've been there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was back in the day. Yeah, the original Brouhaha's was actually the first venue there was called Beatty's. It was on Beatty Street, but I think somebody burned it down for an insurance claim thing. But yeah, I saw a lot of great, Soundgarden, Pantera on the Cowboys from Hell tour. Jackal, all kinds of hilarious and great bands, perform there. But that was back when there was a scene like, back then they had great artists, tour, national touring, international touring artists every weekend. So it's like, without fail, every weekend that place was packed, like by default, because everybody knew that there was going to be some good live music, and there was going to be a lot of people there, and that's what kept that scene was strong. It was like, and it, Swift was on kind of the tail end of that with Ziggy's, and just over time, it just kind of just died, especially when the Ziggy's was forced to shut down and they didn't reopen. There was no venue here in Winston for, I don't know, it was like 5 years or something like that,
Yeah, we here in Jacksonville had a big, I would say, hardcore metal scene when I was in my band, and that was like mid-2000s, early 2000s. And then same thing happened here. We kind of lost venues over time, and then it kind of just decimates the local scene because not that many people are introduced to, that kind of music, whether it be rock, hardcore, or any other kind of music if you don't have a venue. So venues definitely help, obviously, but putting locals on bigger shows obviously helps way more. Yeah,
because, you got to continue that flow of the younger generation coming in and seeing bands and things like that. If they don't get that opportunity, if there's no venue, there's no, it's just not going to exist after a while. It's just like, the kids will stay home, and especially now they stay home and play their video games and,
or just watch them on YouTube or live stream. Or
exactly.
So of all the recording process, I'm going to try to get back on.
You're good. You're good.
Of all the recording processes, whether it be like actual recording, engineering, mixing, mastering, whatever, what would be your favorite part, and what is your least favorite part?
Wow, this is a tough one. And it depends. It depends on the client and the style of music and all that stuff. I don't know, man. It's I honestly, like I said, I don't mind editing. A lot of people think that's ridiculous and crazy, but like I said, it's kind of a zen type of thing to me. I think I enjoy days when there's just nobody here and I'm just editing some drums or tuning some vocals and things like that or whatever. I'm at my most calm. Some days are fun tracking certain clients, certain types of things and stuff like that. But some clients and some styles of music is really, really difficult. So those days would be my least favorite, But, it's just, I don't know. It depends on, I honestly do still enjoy recording and mixing and mastering and all that stuff. I really like when it's all finally all comes together and it's sounding really good. There's the payoff there and stuff like that. I'm kind of OCD or whatever as far as stuff, and it's like really all with music and music production. It's just all you're doing is cleaning up the audio. You're cleaning and organizing the audio. So for an OCD person, they love to clean and organize. So it feeds that cleaning and organized thing.
Just getting it right is the really tough part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just it's really kind of it's stressful for me when it's not coming together like I want it to come together. And that's less common now than it used to be. Now that I know more or whatever, but it used to be like sometimes the record would come together and it would sound really good. Sometimes this stuff is just not sounding good. It was just like it would really bother me because I want to make every client happy and I want to make myself happy and and it's like that. I have inherited anxiety and stress disorder as well, but so it makes it really bad when things aren't going smoothly or it's just not coming together. Things are taking too long, or things are not coming together like I want it to. So that would probably be I know it's vague, but that would probably be the worst element to me. It's just when things aren't coming together in a timely fashion. And a lot of times it's very maddening when it's not my fault. It's like when it's I'm told a record's going to come in, I'm going to mix it, and all the production's supposed to be done, and I get it, and like nothing's done, or it's not done properly, and I have to do it all. And then and of course the client's expected in the same time I told him it was going to be done without all this stuff, but now I've got literally 30 hours extra work that I wasn't planning on doing, and it's like, and then that goes over into another client's work, and it's just like, it just turns into this, like, that's what I'm saying, I get forced into working 70, 80 hours a week, and it's just it's maddening, it's not good for my health.
If your heart's not in it, it's not really the business for you.
Exactly, yeah, I mean, it's tough or whatever, and I wish I could just turn it off and not have that. You try to make everybody happy all at one time, at the same time, but I just can't turn that off, and it's like it makes it, my stress actually, it turns into physical stuff for me. Like I can't breathe right, and I sweat profusely, and just all kind. It's a whole bunch of like, some serious stuff. It landed me in a hospital some years ago or whatever, and I'm on medication for it now, but it can get really bad.
Geez, those BT Bam records really take a toll on you, huh?
It's not the BT Bam records. That's what's they're the records are the most complex and elaborate, or they're more complex and elaborate. But those guys are so prepared when it comes in. It's just like we're just hang out and do the record, and they always. Yeah. Like I said, they're intelligent guys. They book more than enough time to do it because they have the budget, but they also have the smarts to know it's like, hey, we're going to be doing we're going to set some extra time to do the, all these layers and stuff. And there's a lot of clients that come in. They're like, I say, hey, it's going to take this long if everything's written and well rehearsed. They always say it's going to be written well rehearsed, and they show up and they're like. They're still writing lyrics and they're learning guitar riffs off the computer as we're recording. It's like, dude, this is not written and well rehearsed. This is like you just totally ruined my life. Literally for the next month or whatever because you were either lazy or you just lied to me. It's like you should have rescheduled. If you're not ready, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Just reschedule and come in when you have the stuff. Written and well rehearsed,
Yeah, those are some of the things that if you're taking notes, that's a note to take. Be ready before you come into the studio.
Oh, yeah. Or either that or just just tell the guys, like, look, we probably won't be ready because we never are, but let's book, I'm going to have an extra, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 or whatever, and we're going to book an extra 2 weeks, a month or whatever to do this, and I would not care. If they can write the whole thing in the studio, it'd be fine, but I would have allotted time to do this and prepare myself for it mentally, and it'd be completely fine. But it's like, it's a problem when, you're told one thing and it's another thing, and that has become more and more common these days. The kids write records on Guitar Pro, which is a great tool, I think, but it's a problem when they come to the studio and they have never even tried to play the stuff.
Yeah.
And they think it's going to be easy, and they get in the studio and they're learning riffs, bar by bar, and then it's like, it's like, dude, now guitar is going to take 2 weeks to record, and it should take 2 days. It's like, and this is some of the most difficult stuff. You've written some of the most difficult stuff to play that there is. It's like,
yeah, and you might not even be able to play it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's to me, it's an integrity element. It's like, dude, if you can't play this, I don't want to record it. It's like, I've in the past, I've done some records where, I'm pretty sure the people probably still can't play the stuff. And it's like, they're like, oh, I'll be able to play it when it comes time to do the tour. I'm like, I don't know, man, that's kind of pushing the realm of human possibility, but when you track it 2 notes or 4 notes or, a bar at a time, it's, doable, but in a live context, it's never doable. It's like, or it might not ever be doable. And that's, to me, bothersome, to do records that way, but it is what it is. I got to pay the bills. So.
Yeah, sometimes you got to sit through crap,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Got to roll with the punches sometimes.
So, outside of, I'm assuming Between the Buried and Me's got to be some of your favorite moments recording bands and such in general, just because you got to see them kind of grow throughout their whole career. But outside of them, who was your favorite artist to record with or work with, and who takes the cake on the least pleasant?
Well, I absolutely could not ever tell who was the least pleasant, because that would be politically incorrect. But I don't know, man. Like I said, there's a lot of cool people, and it's not even relative to how good or popular they are. There's some great people I've worked with that have never even released records really yet. It's like or they may have just released it on digitally or whatever. So a lot of great people. And there's been a few people who have been negative to work with, not necessarily personally, just I do have, I'm OCD, so I understand wanting things a certain way, but I've had some people who are just picky to the point where it's just ridiculous. It's like, dude, everything you're talking about that you want me to adjust, we're wasting hours adjusting this stuff, and it's not something that anybody could ever even notice. Mm-hmm. And they're not, and I would point that out, and they would just not acknowledge it. It's like everything you're tweaking is like so, like I said, I've had people like, hey, I want one more echo on that word of delay, and it's like,
yeah,
dude, it's it's not making, you're holding up the record. We've been tweaking this thing for 6 months, and you want, this much high end added to the master. It's like, to me, that kind of stuff, it really like starts to be like, I want to tell them like, no, it's like, you're wasting my life, hours of my life, you're wasting your own time. It's just like, but at the same time, it's like, I know how it is. I was that guy who wanted things a specific sound or whatever, so I want to be accommodating too, but it's definitely not a pleasant thing. It's like you got to grit your teeth and just do what they tell you. It's kind of one of those. It's a service, and it's like, dude, I have to do what they want, no matter how ridiculous I think it is, So and it's like I said, some of these people are great people, and they're awesome to hang out with and to record and whatever, but they just get crazy with the tweaks,
nitpicking.
Yeah, and then you got the other people who are the opposite, which are also kind of bothersome, who are just, they don't care. They're just like, whatever, man, it sounds fine. I'm like, dude, that's not good enough. Like, we need to retract that. They're like, nah, it's fine. I'm like, dude, I don't want my name on it if it's going to be this bad, and that's a little less bothersome, but it's bothersome also. So it's hard to say, man. There's a lot of great bands that have I've been lucky to record a lot of great people.
Well, you just had mentioned kind of like you have OCD. Do your kind of tics or whatever, if you have tics, do they get in the way of your recording process sometimes, or is that something, or do bands pick up on kind of like your tics or something like that?
I'm sure they do. I don't think I've had anybody complain or whatever. I think, like I said, a lot of the OCD tendencies work to my benefit in this business. It's like I said, my attention to detail and my willingness to push through and do all the editing. That kind of thing. It's like I think it's only somebody with a certain amount of OCD can even do it. It's like when you're sitting there, you've been editing drums for 30, 40 hours. And so it's like, some people would just be like, dude, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's like, for me, I just can't stop until it's done. And it has to be done thoroughly. It has to be done right. It's like I can't half anything. So I think think a lot of my clients and myself, I think I look at it as a positive more than a negative. But I have, in the past, I was, recent last decade or so, I finally found a balance of like, it's like, I used to, back in the day, I used to over-edit, try to make things too perfect. And I used to make, I used to be so thorough it was like wasting time, in a studio. I think those were some of the disorder elements of it. It's like back. But I've learned to kind of balance things out, and try to look at things like in realistic. It's like, it's all, like I said, it's like I try to listen to it as a listener. Like, is this stuff that's gonna anybody will notice? Is this stuff that's gonna affect whether somebody enjoys this or not? I try to look at it through that lens. And as a producer should, I think, and so that kind of keeps me reeled in. I'm not going to go too crazy, obsessing over stuff that that undersnare wire sounds a little loose. It's like normal people don't care. That's not going to make people like a record. And some of my favorite records sound like crap sonically. Mm-hmm. And it's like and I recognize that. Over time, I'm like, you know what? It's like. It needs to sound good, but it doesn't have to be like this flawless thing that I thought it used. I thought I wanted everything to be this flawless thing when I was younger, and and I've heard some records that are flawless technically, and they lack life to me. Mm-hmm. As I've gotten older, I realize there's something with those, just the slight imperfections and the natural humanity in the recordings and things that's actually better. I don't know what's better about it, but it just feels better to listen to it, and it's like it's just not as stale or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So we're going to get onto the BT Bam situation. I mean, that was inevitable. So we've already kind of talked about Between the Bear and Me leading up to this, but you're basically in like the circle because you've done most of their records, if not all, correct?
I think all of them except for Silent Circus. And
okay, so it's like the first one or whatever.
The first one with Victory. So I did their very first record, which was a live recording, but their first produced effort was Silent Circus, and that was recorded up in Boston. And
the next question was how you got linked up with them, but that was because you were doing some recording already and live recording, sound recording, and they kind of linked up with you. So that's kind of a cool situation. What's the recording process like with them?
Well, it's evolved over the years, but the new process, like I said, they write the record. They'll write the record. They'll record it at home. I gave Blake some recording gear years ago as I upgraded, and so they record their stuff at home, and and then we just book the time. Like I said, the past couple of records, we've been doing the drums at the Fidelatorium. We'll go over there and track drums for 3 days. Usually he'll knock them out in 2, but we'll have an extra day just in case. And so we'll track drums. Then there's usually like a week off while we're working on the drum production and stuff like that. Any quantizing needed or whatever thing, any that kind of stuff. I mean, Blake's a good enough drummer where we could get stuff without quantizing, but they do have a lot of MIDI sequence stuff or whatever that has to, so the drums pretty much have to be in the pocket just to put all the pre-programmed MIDI stuff in and all that kind of stuff, and they got a lot of breakneck tempo changes and stuff like that, so it benefits from being a little idealized in that regard. But there's usually a week off to do that, and then they come in and do guitars and bass. They usually do a half a day guitar, half a day bass tracking, and then Tommy will come in towards the end once all the guitar rhythms and bass are done, and do his vocals and any live key performance stuff he wants to do. They'll split those like guitar leads half a day, then Tommy do half a day on vocals and guitar keys, and then the rest of the time I'll go through and do the vocal production, guitar production, all that kind of stuff. Get the mix in the ballpark, and then usually send them a reference or whatever, and then they'll send me tweaks lists back and via email, and we just keep tweaking the mix until it's done.
The next question is how particular are they with the process in general? Because, I mean, granted, when they first started and I first heard of them way back in the day, Silent Circus time, they were just kind of like a progressive metal band at the time, and kids, basically kids, and so it's crazy they've become such like revered musicians, all of them, so I assume they are very, very particular with a lot of stuff and nuances on the album.
You would think so, but I mean, they're really kind of laid back about it. I think, like I said, I think part of the reason they have continued to work with me is because we're on the same page about all this stuff. We're like, I'm a big fan of just let stuff sound the way it sounds. If Blake's got a new kit, I mean, they try to take it up another level. We're taking, find new tones and new sounds and stuff every record, slightly at least. But so if they have a new guitar, a new pickup, or new amp, they're digging on. We bring it all in the studio. Like Blake's got a new kit, we just set it up, tune it up. If it sounds good, we'll just rock out with it. If we need to change out a snare or a cymbal or something for a part or whatever, we'll just do it as we go. Same thing with guitars. Like we'll use a certain amp and guitar combination for rhythms, and then for leads we'll use whatever guitar is best for that part. And a lot of our sonic decisions are made as we go. We kind of try it out. If it seems like it kicks ass, we roll with it. If it's questionable, then we just try something else until we find something that we do think kicks ass. And so basically, by the time it comes to for me to mix, all I have to do is get the levels kind of right, and I kind of edit and mix as I go. And a lot of times it's just, hey, turn this up, turn this down. Put a little more reverb on that. It's simple stuff. They're not really super particular. They're not like it's funny. The most particular bands are oftentimes the least talented bands. I think that a lot of times they want to hear super specific stuff that they just, the big shortcoming is in their performance, and they're trying to compensate for that, or
right. Make them sound better than they actually are.
Yeah, cover it up. And it's like. But as I've learned more and more over time, and I've gotten better at what I do, I think the tweaking has become less and less. I mean, there's been a few records I've done, and they're like, "Dude, this is great. That's it." It's like, really? Like, they were fine with all my choices and levels and tones and things like that. So I've had that happen a few times, and that's amazing to me. To be able to like realize somebody's vision even without asking them, it's just, to me, it's become somewhat of an intuition thing. I just kind of go with my gut. I always do research before. I'm like, hey, what is there a record that you can kind of let me know? Are there a couple records that kind of give me an idea what kind of drum sounds you want, what kind of guitar sounds, what kind of overall vibe you'd like? And I try to, I usually try to stay up on all the new stuff that comes out, and always kind of, as we do the process, I kind of like reference these records and try to get an idea of where they are in headspace, what type of sounds that they like, and I try to like mentally compile all that and then try to inject it into their record or whatever, or let it kind of guide their record in terms of tones and mix and levels and stuff like that. So that definitely helps, is try to get on their page from the get-go,
It shouldn't take too long. And I mean, you guys obviously have kind of grown up together at this particular point. I mean, they've been a band for over 15 years, and I'm sure. I mean, they've been working with you for almost the same amount of time. So it's
exactly. We've evolved together too. Like we're into the same styles of music. Like we used to be into the heavier stuff. Now we're all into the lighter stuff, and it's just like. Or not necessarily lighter stuff, but just more adult stuff, I guess you could say. Less hardcore, more, musical.
Dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just, so, I mean, everybody in BT Band's got different influence than each other, and I've got different influences and stuff like that, but I think we're still all on the same page enough to be, for things to be, we don't have to really discuss a whole lot,
That's cool.
I kind of, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just kind of have an intuition as to what they want, what they're going for, and, always ask or whatever. And a lot of times, they're really smart. Like I said, they've already recorded the record, and they've already made instrument and decisions and things and tone decisions even before they come to studio. So it's just like, it's just a matter of me capturing what they've got going on,
Yeah. So another question that a lot of people ask us to ask you was, are Between the Bear and Me as good as musicians as we all think they are?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, well, if you hear the record, that's what they sound like. I mean, go see them live. I mean, they sound literally just like the record. They might miss a note here or there or whatever, but, it's, but overall, I mean, they could play a 70-minute album and only mess up like probably, 1% of the time, and that's insane to me, And when you've got all those notes and the crazy stuff that they play, they're definitely masters of their craft, like I said, obviously there's people, I think, a lot of people, want to focus on their playing ability, and they're great musicians. There's definitely better technical musicians out there. But what, to me, BT Bam, their genius is in, like, their ability to write stuff that's, like the Beatles, that's got this timeless, catchy vibe to it, and infuse it, put styles that normally shouldn't work together, and have them, the transitions are genius. I think, they'll go from black metal to bluegrass and it sounds normal. It's like that's that shouldn't happen, but they have the theoretical prowess and just the intuition to be able to do that kind of stuff, and that's the stuff that a lot of bands can't do. Like, it's just and then with all that, they still maintain a sound of BT Bam. They sound like Between the Buried. Every record is different, but they still sound like Between the Buried to me. Yeah. And Tommy's voice is really identifiable. His scream and his singing, so that's a big part of it. But it's not just that; it's just the way they do their riffs. It's the way Blake does his drum beats and how they. It's just, I don't know. It's like, I think, like I said, and I don't know if they know how they do it. I think they just do it, and it's been working, so they just keep doing it. And it's
it comes natural.
Yeah, I know Dan is. I think the guys have mentioned, like, Colors is when it kind of came together for them with this particular lineup. The lineup that's been around for a while, for a long while. They just kind of found this formula, and it's it's just how it naturally. They didn't think, it's not like a conscious formula that, hey, we're going to do this and this now. It's just how, all their influences that came together. Let's do all our influences and let's just see what happens. And they did it, and they just keep growing or, expanding outwards from that same formula. And it's just, it's been a winning combination for them. It's obviously like they keep getting new fans and, going, and it's like some records are heavier, some records are softer, some records are more experimental, some records are more, go back to the roots a little bit, and it's like, it's all still sounds like, Between the Buried and Me, and like I said, to me, it's, to me, what's amazing also is, and I'm not, it's not just because they're the biggest band I've recorded, but every record they do is really good. It's like, a lot of bands, like, they'll have cool 1, 2, maybe 3 records, and then it starts to go downhill, or they get off course and things like that. And BT Bam has not gotten off course yet. And it's like, how do you stay together all these years, and it's just, to me, it just kind of keeps getting better. It's like they keep finding new stuff. I'm like, that's just crazy to me. It's like that's a rare thing, I think. And they slowly built because of that, instead of like getting hugely popular and then just falling off the face of the earth or whatever, like a lot of bands do. They've just slowly, just continually, progress within their own sound, and it's working out for them.
Yeah, I mean, each song is kind of like, or not, I can't even say each song, because sometimes, if not most times, the album kind of is structured in a way to where you push play on the first song, and there's no musical gap until the end of the record.
Yeah. But
they're all just like ginormous journeys. Each song is its own journey. Like you were saying, they could be like shredding, and then bam, you're into a samba. Some kind of weird samba situation, or you've got like some kind of weird Aztec, Mayan sounding drum rhythmic stuff, and it's crazy stuff, man. That whole situation is crazy.
Yeah.
I do think that the addition of Dusty and Blake, when Colors was recorded, definitely just shot them into a different stratosphere. But unfortunately, it did almost put the nail in the glass casket coffin, But they kind of tease, those two tease, Blake and Dusty tease about the next glass casket record, this, that, the other, and I'm still waiting for it. But
oh, it'll happen. I think it's just tough, man, because they work so much, they tour so much, and when they're home, it's like they either have to do something Between the Buried and Me and stuff like that, and it's like, I think they have a bunch of material. It's just a matter of now they've got families and stuff like that, and it's like, you get home from touring for 3 months, and it's like, hey, let's get together and work on some new music. It's like, no, dude, I am not. I'm trying to play some video games,
Right.
Yeah, I think that's probably more or less what's been happening over all these years, and, plus they're in different headspace musically as far as, I know Blake in terms of like, I don't think he has a super burning desire to like, shred some black metal or whatever, it's like, or some death metal stuff. And, I know Dusty still loves it, but, he's been getting into a lot of, he's living out in Nashville doing like country session stuff now,
wow.
and it's like, so they're just heads in a different place. I know they'll do it eventually because the demand is definitely there. I have kids all the time asking me to do stuff, and I have plans personally to remix the Glass Casket records, just do a 2000.
Which one?
Both of them, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so just to give a 2019 translation, hopefully they'll be able to get those released, and that'll be fun for everybody. And but maybe once I do that, I might inspire them to go ahead and finish this third record up.
I've read that they said it's heavier than the previous stuff. Any of the new stuff that they had mentioned the last couple of years is heavier than We Are Gathered Here or Desperate Brand's Diary. So I'm interested to see what that would be like.
Oh, it will be, yeah. Because being a BT Bam, because if they're going to do it, it's got to be brutal. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, especially after all this weight, it's going to be. I've heard a few riffs, and there's some riffs that they're killer. It's probably going to be more prog than the earlier efforts too. Just by default,
right.
But yeah, it's just. It's going to be heavy if they do it. It's like. So I'm stoked.
It's interesting that band actually is still brought up because at the time, 2005 or 6 or 4 or whatever, I just remember they had like the 1-2 album, and then Dusty and Blake left, and I was like, damn, that's it. And I didn't even think that many people knew about them.
Yeah.
Going forward, but I'm assuming the bigger BT Bam got, the more the internet was available, people started figuring out that these two guys are from this band, and they dove into that band. So that's interesting. You're going to remix and master those two albums, because one of my questions was if you could remix or remaster any of the albums that you had, which one do you want to do the most? Like to just fix it up because you have the better ability or better equipment or anything like that?
All the records I've ever done, I want. It's like that OCD in me. It's like
I was gonna say OCD time.
Well, like for the Swift stuff, I'm almost finished remixing and mastering all the Swift stuff again. Are we going to see
some vinyl releases?
I'd like to, yeah. I mean, if there's demand for it, it's surprising to me that people were still interested in the Swift thing and whatever. But yeah, when we released the new record last year, which was basically just a collection of songs we had, riffs that Gary or myself or Mike or Taylor or whatever, just Billy, just little ideas that we had for over 10, 15 years. Just mainly, it's really old material, really. But we released that record, and when we did, I mean, everybody, just kind of like, all this interest peaked up again, and so it's like, I was like, well, I need to remix. Let's do our 20th anniversary show, so we'll be doing that this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in December, hopefully.
Oh my goodness, I have to probably take time off and come up there for that.
Yeah, put your Jinkos and the chain wallet on, and come back up to North Carolina for a new metal extravaganza.
Yeah.
No, but like I said, so we'll do our 20th anniversary show for that, and I was like, I just need to go ahead and once and for all just remix and master because I feel like I can get the sound that I always wanted for it. I know the fans will probably still prefer the originals. You get used to a certain sound, but it's I'm kind of thinking about doing just a remaster of the old mixes and then also make the new mixes available.
Cool.
I just I think I personally enjoy the more modern, the specs have changed from, everything, the old masters are harsh and high endy, and that was like common back then for the new metal stuff, like, Korn and Deftones, everything's high endy and kind of painful to listen to, but as I've gotten older, like I want it to be crisp, but, more pleasant on the top end and thicker bottom end and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, the fullness. I feel like a lot of stuff recorded now is a lot more fuller sounding, whereas like, because even when I pirated a lot of music when I was a kid, so that's just that, and I still kind of do.
Yeah.
I feel like you would always see like the KBSs, like the the kilobytes per second or whatever that the audio file was, and like 128 was a decent one back in the day, 192.
Yeah.
But now everything's like 320, and if it's under 320, it sounds like garbage. But a lot of the stuff that we listen to, or you might even put out, was it within that range? The 128, 196. So.
Yep. Yeah, what sounded good to us back then doesn't sound good to me now, so it's like, obviously, the playback systems are all better now, and so I want everything to sound pleasant, and, there's also some different specs, I've recently become Apple MFit authorized or whatever, so I can make the Apple, online specs, which is, slightly more dynamic, lesser peak level or whatever, so that the master doesn't crackle and stuff on some systems and things like that. So I want to have it set up for that also, so the people who do listen to it can sound as pleasant as possible, But
yeah,
and that'll help me put it to rest. I always, when we recorded it, I didn't have the equipment or knowledge to get the sounds that I wanted, and it's like, I've always after a few years, I'm like, man, I really wish I could fix this or that or whatever, and so I think this will be like probably the last time I'll do it, but like I said, we'll have the original, mixes available for the fans who want to jam on the original stuff, and then I'll have the, 2019 20th anniversary versions that they can check out also, so it should be neat. But I'd like to do that with, all the BT Bam stuff and the glass casket and all the, everybody who's done an important record that people would actually listen to. Now they have some better gear and knowledge. I'd like to revisit those and touch them up and make them cleaner and bigger and fuller and more detailed and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, a remastered Colors album would be crazy, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we remastered it once, but it was for vinyl, and obviously vinyl's lower quality than CDs, so a lot of people couldn't even tell it was remastered, but that version exists, but I'm pushing for a remix, so I know there's, and this is on the down low too, but I think I think all of them will eventually be remixed and remastered, all the earlier ones, all the Victory releases or whatever. I'm really pushing for that, and I think the guys, they finally somehow are getting access to the masters. So I don't think Victory actually owns that stuff anymore. So I think it's kind of in the works. I guess we'll have to see. It's a legal thing, I think.
Usually is, especially if Victory's involved.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the last couple BT Bam questions in here, because we're getting a little sidetracked, and I'm sure you have other things to do at some point. But,
gotcha.
Which one should I ask first? Would you have a nervous breakdown at this particular point if Between the Buried and Mute chose to record an album with someone else? Maybe they've wanted to work with a particular person, but didn't want to hurt Jamie King's feelings. So,
No, yeah. I mean, it was that's obviously like the last couple records or whatever were mixed by Jens Bogren or whatever. They recorded the EP, the Parallax EP with David Bottrell up in Canada, and
okay.
So they have worked with other people. It's like, to me, I want them to do what's best for their stuff, to get to the next level or whatever, and and I would totally be understandable. Understand if they want to try something else and stuff like that. And having said that, them choosing to work with me has definitely helped me a lot. In terms of they're the most influential band I've recorded and stuff like that. But there's I've recorded, like I said, with the Contortionist, and there's some, handful of other artists or whatever that I recorded that also influential to other bands. So I don't think, my business would totally be done or anything of that nature or whatever. But it would definitely, it's definitely, it helps, the BT Bam still chooses to work with me, because every time they do a record and it comes out, I have, kids, they're like, oh, that record sounds great. Let me, let's find out who recorded that and, work with them. So yeah, I mean, but I think, with them, I think they'll probably continue to work with me, at least here and there in some capacity, just because, like I said, I'm hometown. They're, Blake's right up the street, and most bands, they orbit around the drummer, wherever the drums are.
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing. So, it's convenient, and I feel like I can do the work, confidently. That they need done, and especially in terms of tracking or whatever else they might need or whatever. So I think I could be involved in some way or not or whatever. But yeah, there's it's like the, when you get these other, especially when you get bigger name producers and stuff like that, when you get a mixer guy or a mastering guy or a producer who's worked with a record that's gone gold or platinum or, who's Grammy nominated and all this stuff, there's the name drop thing that's really beneficial for bands. Even if they're totally satisfied with my work, I still don't have a big of name as some of these other, my name is not as big as some of the other, producers and mixer guys and mastering guys out there. So, and having those big names attached to the record really do help, I think, in some instances, getting retailers to purchase CDs. It's like they might order 10,000 units if somebody's name is on it, and if that name is not on it, they might order 1,000. And
right.
It's because they don't know who Between the Buried and Me is, but they do know who Tool is, or who the name. It's a name association thing that happens within the industry that is a real thing, and I understand that, and plus, like I said, a BT band, they're always just wanting to try something new. It's like they'll have a new. They've been playing Mesa for years, but they'll come in and be like, hey, let's use the 5150 on this record. It's not because they don't like their Mesa. It's just because they just want to try something else.
They're experimental.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that element. I wouldn't be totally upset if they decided to do something else. Like I said.
Yeah, I was just asking because you at this particular point, you're a member of the Between the Buried and Me circle, so
yeah.
You're pretty instrumental in the whole situation. You know what I mean? Speaking of which, when can we assume that they might be recording again?
I don't know. I mean, they're just busy touring right now. I mean, I'm assuming sometime next year, maybe. I don't know. If they continue with their current, tour recording cycle, it probably would be at some point next year. But I'd imagine at some point they're going to have to slow down. It's like they've been going at it hard for a long time. But I imagine you got to be able to afford to slow down. But I know, they got families and all that kind of stuff, and so I don't know. I mean, I would think they would be done with the touring this year and early next year, and then take some months off to write next year, and maybe get in the studio late next year, or into 2021 or whatever. But
yeah, they kind of go a couple years between their albums. It's like 2-3 years. Every 2-3 years, they kind of have a new album. Other than 2018, they released. Automata 1, Automata 2.
Yeah.
So, they had double release that year. But, ideally, I was kind of hoping to schedule something with them as well within the same time frame as interviewing you.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I want to come up there. I'd like to come up there, do like a little situational tour with your studio and behind the scenes type stuff, but I wanted to do this interview in person, and if they were there, they could do it the next day, and that would be dope. But unfortunately, they all don't live in that in that area anymore. So But once that happens, we would love to, if we're allowed, to come kind of like
absolutely
redo this, and maybe have a whole sit down with you and them.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be cool with it. Yeah, Dan lives close by. He's in Greensboro, and Blake, he lives here in Winston or whatever, so those guys could be available for sure. And Dusty still has family here. Paul's in Charlotte, so he's doable. Tommy's West Coast, so that's more difficult. But yeah, if they're here recording, I mean, for sure we can make that happen.
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, and if not, obviously we know that there's like a lot of stuff going on with the recording process and everything like that. So we're moving on to Swift for the last little segment here of this situation. We've kind of talked a lot about them, and I guess the reason we kind of already discussed the reason you're not doing as much is because your record deal kind of fell through with 9/11, and then just life happens and stuff like that. But is there new music? Is there actually new music coming too?
Yeah, well, like I said, we released the record in December of last year. Just kind of quietly, just put it online. Not any big label release or anything like that. But that's probably the newest stuff. I mean, we have other ideas, but I don't know if there's going to be any newer music. That we still got some riffs, because I mean, the music that Swift's known for is a dated sound, obviously. With the whole new metal thing, and none of us are really into that whole thing at this point.
No way.
I mean, I still jam on the old stuff. I used to love Deftones and whatever else. I still love that stuff. But but as far as creatively coming up with new stuff in that same genre, it would be difficult for us. So if we did do new music, it'd probably be really different, and it would probably be something that the Swift fans would be like, this isn't Swift, So
right.
So we might do music, but it might be a different project. It might be under a different name. I don't know. But as for right now, like I said, I mean, I guess, and it also depends on, it's going to be interesting. We did reunion show. I think it was 2011 at Ziggy's when it was open for the second time, and there was like 1,100 people there. So it was a surprise. I thought, I was like, there's no way. It's like I'll be happy if we have 500 people. Because that was like, we used to do like, around 800 people back in the day, and it was like a big deal around here to do that many people. And I was like, man, it'd be awesome if we get 500 people, and it was like double that. It was like kind of it was a novelty thing. A lot of people, it's like a family reunion of all the old Swift fans and friends and family in the area. This was the only market that we ever had that we did those type of numbers. But it's it'll be interesting to see because honestly, like a lot of our fans, obviously, the kids used to come to see us back in the day. They're all grown up, moved away. There's a good significant amount of people who have passed away since the Swift days. Sadly, a lot of huge Swift fans have passed away and stuff, and so I'm not expecting that big of a turnout this time or whatever. But if there seems like there's people who still want to hear new stuff, I think that would help motivate us to maybe do another record or something like that. I know, like I said, we got a couple guys, Gary and Billy, the vocalist and bass player respectively. They're living up in New York, and so it's difficult to get together with those guys. But Mike, the guitar player, and Taylor, the other guitar player, they both live pretty nearby, and we've been actually getting together here and there for the past couple of months and doing some band practices and stuff.
Cool.
So, trying to relearn the stuff. It's like I'm about twice the weight I was back the last time we played a show. so it's going to be an interesting challenge for me to play the drums. But yeah, I need to just for the exercise portion of it and just the
right.
The anti-anxiety stress therapy that it provides as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, your Florida family, fan family, definitely has missed you over the time. A lot of my close friends I met through webzines and through interneting in general. When I was doing like my old website, the HRN, I met Jason through. He was doing the Florida Underground, and he also did some management for like School for Heroes
yep.
and Calm and stuff like that. So all those bands and. I actually texted Jason earlier, and he said the one question I have for Jamie is when are they gonna come down to Florida? Because we all have kids and we can't travel anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a difficulty too. But yeah, I would love to go to Florida because we're still friends with the School for Heroes guys. I was talking to Dax and talking about maybe doing a kind of a small little tour of some of the few of the markets that we used to do okay in back in the day. Just kind of pointless, just for fun, And
Mm-hmm.
there might be only 35, 50 people there, but it would be it'd be a lot of fun. It's like so I might try to get the guys on board. If we've worked up the set again, and able to play it well, and everybody can work out the time or whatever. I don't see any reason why we couldn't hit Florida and maybe New York and some of the other North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee market stuff that places where we used to have some fans. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe you guys open up for Between the Beard and Me in the southwestern region here. You never.
That would be great. That would be kind of difficult, but great. Yeah, it's like, just stylistically, they'd probably be like all the BT.
Yeah, they might not.
The BT band fans would be like, "What is going on?" But
new metal, what?
It's funny.
Well, you never know. A lot of those guys, they may like new metal because.
Yeah.
Between the Beard and Me can go, they're so big, the spectrum's so big for them.
Yeah, there's the faux pas is kind of worn a little thin. I've noticed like some kids are actually openly like, oh yeah, I like Korn. I'm like, what? Like you wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. It's like
no. But now they are those bands are definitely like throwback bands technically. So
yeah, the novelty. Yeah, it's like it's and they're still I still enjoy those first records. You go back and listen to them. It's like this stuff was cool. For its time, it's innovative. You got to give bands like that credit. And it's like and everybody wants to hate on Limp Bizkit and all the rap rock and stuff. But people were jamming that en masse back in the day. It's like
I was one of them, and then it has its place in time.
Yeah, it's just like I wouldn't jam on it now, but it's just like but it's just one of those things that I don't know. People tend to be silly about, like a fashion thing. Like I don't know. But
coming from Jacksonville, I had to be on the Limp Bizkit train, and they were like my biggest band at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, West Borland came up with some sick riffs, no denying.
I think as a band, their musically they are just great.
Great, yeah.
But it's lost. A lot of that's lost on the lyrics and Fred and all that. But
is what it is.
What can you do? What can you do? Yeah,
it's funny. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as you mentioned us opening up for BT Bam, but it's funny because BT Bam actually opened up for Swift when they were in the studio recording the first record. We had a show at Ziggy's, and some band dropped off the bill, and BT Bam was there. I was like, "You guys want to play a show tonight or whatever?" And they opened up for us. That's hilarious. I mean, that's back at the original, with Will Goodyear on drums, and it was just their original lineup. Nick and.
Silent Circus days.
That was even before that. Yeah, this was our very first record. So it was, but yeah, so BT Bam didn't have the fans at that point. They were a brand new band. But it's funny how that would be flipped now. It's like, how things have changed. Like we were the marketable band then. Now BT Bam are the marketable band. So
yeah,
it's just crazy how things happen.
Well, it has been a great time. This is actually a lot longer than I had originally anticipated.
Sorry.
No. It's all good. It's more my fault because I had a long list of things to ask you. Because again, I've known who you are, and we spoke when I was a child too. So it's
Absolutely.
not like, yeah,
it's like reconnecting. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been cool, and I want to thank you for sending me those CDs. That's beyond cool. That was a big surprise, and it was very kind of you, so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you for having me on the show and all you've done for the music scene all these years, man. You've been a major player, man. That's
Well, I appreciate that.
We all owe you a debt of gratitude for that. I mean, even people who don't know what you did, with the HRN and all that stuff. It's like. That was a big deal,
Yeah, I was just a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid just at my mom's house, freaking my parents out, getting these packages every day in the mail of CDs and all that shit.
Yeah, I can imagine that could be overwhelming, Yeah,
they're like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I don't know. I just have a website and labels."
I run an international web business.
Yeah. But again, I appreciate it, Jamie. I definitely wouldn't mind coming up there and doing some kind of behind the scenes stuff with you. And then definitely, if you're recording somebody of our genre that we can handle or cover, that'd be dope. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, there were so many other things that we could have talked about because you've worked with a plethora of people that someone who doesn't know who you are definitely has to take the time out to see whom you've worked with, and because you are very influential as well in the whole metal and hardcore, not hardcore scene, but the metal scene for sure, and prog metal and everything like that. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially this much, to sit down with us.
Oh, it was an honor, man.